What's up, book babes? Get comfy, get cozy. It's time to chill. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Emily, and this is Book Bits and Chill, the podcast where we break down every chapter, thirst over fictional men, and never take ourselves too seriously.
That is right, Bartholomew, and we are here with our second part to the Night of the Moth. And let me tell you, I'm equally as excited as the first part because so much shit happens in these next 10 chapters. I was mind blown the entire time reading it.
It was so good. So we're going to get into our speed read with a quick sassy chapter summary from Cassie and I, and then we'll do our recurring segments, Moth to Flame moment, what really drew you in, the trope tracker, we had lots the last episode, and our favorite quote of the week. Did they really just say that? And then always stay tuned for our casual bits of the week where we freeform combo like BFFs and see if we would survive this set of chapters.
Like BFFs, we're playing BFFs, and that's a trope. Okay, so let's
This
let's
is all
kick it
a lie.
off. Oh my god. Okay, so we start off with our little crew. So a reminder of who our crew is. Six and or Sybil, the diviner, the only diviner standing. And she is she's currently on a mission to find out where her fellow diviners, the other five, have gone when they disappeared in the night. So we join Sybil, aka Six, the gargoyle, Rory, our very broody, hot, sexy, in my mind, knight, who is a part of the King Castor, Benedict Castor's knighthood. And then we also have Maud, who is his fellow knight, and we've learned that those three are kind of like a little bit of a crew, essentially. And so we left off with Six staring into the eyes of an old man with stone eyes who was holding an inkwell of stone, which we know is one of the artifacts, the magical artifacts that one of our omens use. So he calls himself Trom's historian, but very quickly Sybil's like, bro, you are one of the omens. There is just no way. So the omen that uses the inkwell is the Harried Scribe. The king steps up, our little boy king, our little 17-year-old boy, Benji, steps up and he's like, hey man, we're actually trying to challenge you at your craft, and if we win, then you give us your fucking inkwell. And the omen is like, ha ha ha, whatever, do it. So the craft is knowledge that he has, because he's a scribe. So they go through this whole thing and they end up winning, which is great. But what is not great is that the Harried Scribe is not going down without a motherfucking fight. This man is like, he's like, I have been gypped. Hell no. He's a sore loser. But then for whatever reason, he like is obsessed with Six. Like he has this like really creepy obsession with her, and he's like, oh, diviner, like stay with me. And she's like, no. And he ends up biting her and like licking up her blood, and she's like, sir, give me some fucking space, maybe 6 feet. And so they end up essentially killing him and getting the inkwell. And after all of this, Sybil / Six is like, what in the holy fuck is going on? So then we cut to them being in the king's quarters at the castle. And we end up having a conversation with Benji where he's talking us through a notebook that his grandfather, the original,
yeah,
the OG, the OG. Confirmation, it's good.
I'm locked in. This is where I'm locked in.
The grandfather's notebook trope. So we Benedict Castor was the original king who was actually killed for heresy, and he essentially ended up uncovering a lot of really good stuff that Emily's talking about. So he essentially finds out that the omens were not gods, but they actually started out as craftsmen. So they were mortal people that essentially were like collected by the sixth omen, the moth. We still don't know who this omen person is. And they go up to Aisling Spring and are all like essentially perform their own divination. They're all drowned, whatever, and they come out anew, and they're all dubbed these omens, and they're given these stone objects, and they all essentially go into their own little hamlets, their own little areas within the hamlets, and effectively disappear. So it's been like centuries since this occurred, and these omens have essentially just been hiding out. So at this point, we find out that the Harried Scribe is obviously dead, but we also find out that Rory, our hot knight with the 3 earrings, was actually a ward of one of the omens, and it was the Artful Brigand, and that is why he has his stone coin, because Rory was found by original King Benedict Castor, and they both killed the Artful Brigand. So we learned through this whole process that Boy King Benji II is now on a mission. He's picking up where his grandfather left out, to what he continues to say, take the mount. He wants to take up the mount, which essentially means that he is trying to kill all of these fucking omens and take all of their stone magical objects and take back the kingdom, essentially, from these omens. We also learned that the fucking abbess, of course, is a shady bitch, and she has been basically behind the majority of this the entire time. And she has been paying these omens to kind of stay hidden, stay godlike, whatever, with all of the funds from the divinations that the diviners were completing. And she has been able to also stay young, which I think Emily gave some foreshadowing to this at the end of our last episode.
Ooh, did I? I'm so smart.
You did. She's yeah, you are. She's been staying young essentially through like drinking this spring water from Ashling. So Six is basically like her mind is fucking blown to shreds. She's like, my entire life has been a lie, and she decides to join their cause to not
their
only
cause.
Their cause. The boy king's cause. She decides to join up on the cause, and she's like, I am only doing this to find my fellow diviners, because this is bullshit that we've been lied to our entire life. And so she's like, I'll help you, boy king, but I must find my diviners.
We deserve to live.
We deserve to live. And so after she decides to join the cause, she goes outside, and Rory and Maud are there waiting. And they're like, okay, if you're going to do this, then you need to get fitted for some proper armor. And so we enter into this room with her and Rory. And and here's where things start to get a little bit steamy. So apparently, which I didn't know, but apparently the process for fitting someone for some armor is incredibly sexual. So Rory essentially heats up beeswax, and she like has her little like diviner dress on or whatever, and he essentially like cuts it so it's like tight to her body, and then spreads beeswax just all over her. And he's like, is this temperature okay? She's like, yeah, it's fine. Like meanwhile, she's just like absolutely dying on the inside. And sparks are flying everywhere in the middle of this beeswax. And at the end of this part, we learn that Rory has actually had some little broody feelings for our girl. Yeah, and he like dropped some really sexy comment. I remember being like, damn. It was something along the lines of like, oh, you want me to be a good knight, but like I know you like it when I'm a bad knight. Like it was something along those lines, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. Let's turn down the heat in this room.
Beeswax sales immediately went up on Amazon after that chapter.
Skyrocketed. Immediately became a Prime member. So yeah, we leave off with her getting fitted for armor, and then where do we go, Em?
So the group that is traveling for the cause,
the troop for the cause.
The troop for the cause is traveling to the next location, the Fervent Peaks, and kind of like Cassie mentioned, when the omens were created, they were kind of sent off to their own hamlets, and those groups of hamlet people, like, I guess you would call them the population of the hamlet.
The hamlet people! We are the hamlet people.
Like, worship that one omen. So they, like, worship all the omens, but, like, specifically very much the one that's associated with their hamlet. So they're traveling to the Fervent Peaks, which is a very rugged, mountainous, misty, wet region that is identified by the ardent oarsman. So he
Yeah.
is the omen that carries the stone oar, and his whole concept is that everything should be done in vigor. So
Ooh.
basically, like strength, being hard, calloused, nothing to do with emotions. And it matches the landscape. They meet some of the people that live there, the hamlet population, and they then run into some massive mountain sprites, which I don't know if we mentioned the sprites last time, but they're basically this like looked down upon group of magical creatures that have been hunted and killed over the years because they're seen as like aggressive, they attack, and they're like, we need to get rid of them.
But the whole propaganda around them is that they've been like evil, and like they're like the root of all evil, so they like were forced to attack these sprites, right?
Yes, but why were the
Propaganda
sprites like looked
trope.
at? Yeah, propaganda trope. Again, why were they looked at as evil? We don't know. It's all
We
a
don't know.
lie.
We don't
So
know.
they get attacked by this massive mountain sprite, and in turn, Benji gets knocked off his horse, and he is about to be eaten.
Oh,
and
God.
none other than our gargoyle and Six go ahead and save his life, and all the knights are like, holy shit, okay, you guys are actually good for something. I guess we'll respect you now. You get to this part where Benji, the king, the boy king, has to perform this weird ceremony where he like gets in the freezing cold mountain water, and he's completely naked, and he has to stay there for an hour.
Poor Benji.
And you're like, hypothermia, will he survive? Is that the point? Do they want to kill him? So while everybody's distracted by watching this near-death experience, Rory and Six sneaking off to do a little side mission. So basically,
side quest.
Side squad. They have been carrying around this Ashling spring water to basically lure the omens, because the omens were created from drinking this water, so they're drawn to it. And so they're going to go...
Moth to a flame.
Moth to a flame moment. They're going to put out the water and see if they can get the ardent oarsman to appear. Surprise, he does. He falls for it. That man is thirsty for that water.
Why was this giving the cereal from Akatar? I was cracking up when I
100% same vibe, same location, exactly what happened.
Same deal.
Except we'll find out more about this oarsman, and I don't know if he's so sweet. So they show up to this castle, Six, Rory, and the gargoyle, no cause troop behind them, and they're like, I guess we're gonna knock on the door. It was very strange. I'm like, guys, this is an omen. I don't know that you know what you're doing.
Definitely not.
Get in, and Six is like, holy shit, this is the place from my divination dreams. And
oh my God.
She's immediately on guard. There, sitting on the throne, is a man that is basically made of shale stone.
Whoa.
Nasty fingernails, sharp teeth, and eyes of stone. And it is the ardent oarsman.
Oh my God.
At this point, Six is pissed. She's like, I learned too much about y'all's history, and my sisters are still missing, and I know something's wrong.
That's
so
right.
she's like, starts calling him false god. You take money from the abbess, and you don't share it with the people. Like, you're a bitch, basically.
Wow, I forgot how much happened in this part. Holy cow.
And he's like, nobody's calling me a bitch in my own home. And Rory's like, really? Because I challenge you to your own craft. Let's not forget the craft is vigor. This seems like a mistake.
Oh, God.
And the oarsman is basically like, okay, I'll do it, but I get to choose who, just like Rory did with the diviners. And he says, I choose to face Six in combat.
Oh, my God.
Start the whole training montage. It's like a movie. They're training every day. They've got to teach her how to fight. She's weak. How is she gonna do this? Oh, she's stronger than we thought. Let's fit her in armor. The gargoyle's in on it. Maud's in on it. Benji's in on it. We've got this, team.
She's stronger than we thought is definitely a trope, by the way. Add it to the tracker.
And so at the end of all this training, obviously she's got sore muscles, and Rory is like, how about I take you to this hot spring where we can relax those muscles? Of course, it's, I don't know, seemingly like 250 BC, maybe, and they don't have swimsuits. And so, of course, they go in nude.
Duh.
Yeah.
Or they might just be in Europe. Who knows?
Yeah, that too. So Rory goes in first and then, like, gives Six her space. And I'm, like, really surprised at this point, because I'm still unsure if they're nuns in costume or not, that why she's so willingly going skinny dipping with Rory. But she does. And, of course, things get a little steamy. They're, like, getting closer and closer. There's some touching.
Ooh.
He rubs his thumb along her lip, but there's no kissing. Not yet. Eventually, they're like, we got to get back. You have to take on an omen tomorrow. So, like, let's get some rest.
Sure.
So, we get to the day of the challenge. And they're like, we've trained for this. You're ready. You're actually, like, way more ready than we expected. And they get there, and the oarsman is standing on a platform in the middle of water.
Dun,
You
dun,
might
dun.
be thinking, why is this a big problem? This bitch can't swim. She only knows how to drown.
She can only drown.
She can only drown. And so she's now floating above water. They've trained her to use the coin and the inkwell to fight this man, to have a step ahead. And now they're like, we can't risk the inkwell. We can't risk the coin. You don't know how to swim. You've got to go in with your hammer and chisel.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. She's got to go do some stonework on that platform.
So she gets up there and she starts fighting at him with her hammer and chisel. So she gets some blows in. And he starts knocking her over too. He's like shaking the platform. And at one point she like falls over and her shroud falls off. And whatever he sees behind that shroud shocks this man into silence.
Oh my god.
We don't know what it is, but Smart Six is like, holy shit, I don't know what's going on either. I've never seen my own face. But whatever's happening, I'm going to take this opportunity to run at him. So she runs at him, hits his leg with the hammer and chisel. The man is down. He's going to lose. She's beat him at the challenge. But not yet, because these sneaky little omens are little lies and cheats. While he's going down himself, he sweeps her with the oar, and she's stumbling into the water where she maybe will drown.
Oh,
The
wow.
end.
Well, the end. Holy cow, that was a journey, man.
It
Rachel,
was a journey.
What have you done? What have you done? Don't take this girl away from us halfway through this book, please.
Please. I don't know. I can't be left with Mendacious. We don't know if we trust him yet.
Oh my god, that is so wild. Also, during that part, the omen, the fucking oarsman, reveals that the diviners are dead.
I forgot about that. I was so shook by the fact that she was drowning.
Yes. Do you remember that? He was like, all, like, one of your diviners came to me and I drained her, like, because all of them are, like, addicted to the spring water. And these diviners have so much spring water that they've inhaled from their drownings that this omen was like, yeah, I fucking drained their asses.
Yeah. It is a thing. It seems to be a trope. We've really jumped to trope tracker on this, that there's like a little vampire trope. They're all biting her.
There is a blood-sucking trope big time.
Yeah. So,
running rampant through this book. So that was horrific. My stomach like really dropped during that.
Were you
part.
holding out hope that they were still alive? Because I was.
Yes, and I honestly still am, because these omens are such fuckers that I was like, there's no way that they are all dead.
Yep.
Like,
is it a lie? Is it a truth?
Is it a lie or is it a truth? Which I think brings us to our moth to flame moment. So I would love to hear yours out of all of the shit that just happened.
That shit was crazy. But I would be remiss not to call out the beeswax scene. Because I have to say that was the switch from the enemies to lovers, and you're like, oh, ho, 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 I see what's going down here.
Yeah,
And he's rubbing this warm beeswax all over her body, forming it to her curves, and at one point he, like, gets down on his knees in front of her, and you're like, ho, ho, ho.
Whoa, where are you going, Rory?
What's going on here?
What's happening?
And I was really pleasantly surprised by that scene because so many of these romantasy books like go straight to like Pound Town, and they're like literally having the most wild sex, and the girl's a virgin and she's being thrown around the ceiling fan, and like it was nice to see some like build up that was like some realistic foreplay.
Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of foreplay in this section, like, between that scene, and then they had, like, little quotes here and there, but then when they're waiting for the oarsman, and she basically admits that she's never had an orgasm before, she calls it the unraveling. She's like, I've never unraveled with anyone before, and
why did she also call it the little death?
Oh, the little death. I forgot about that. I don't know, maybe because it's like she's used to fucking drowning and coming back to life, so she's like... she's like, everything magical and euphoric happens when you die and then come back to life.
I was like, wait, is that a thing in real life? Cosmopolitan magazine did not teach me that.
That's a trope. So yeah, she's like, I've never unraveled without anyone. I've never experienced the little death. And he's like, I would love to see you unravel. And I was like, okay, Rory. All right, here we go, baby. Rory. That is my night right there. So yeah, I feel like she did like a really nice job with the build up in this particular section, because there was a lot of little flamey moments where you're like, ooh, hot, spicy. I like it.
What was your moth to flame moment?
Mine was when Benji was talking Six through like his entire grandfather's notebook and like
good.
The history of the magic and Trom and the omens and things like that, like, which maybe this is also getting into the trope tracker, but I feel like there's a trope around just like the history that you know, and then like the history that's real, and like it just getting completely debunked. Like I feel like that's such a thing in these romantasy books where they like grow up believing this whole figment of their imagination, and it just ends up being a lie. And so
100%.
I loved that. And then I also just thought that the way that she described the story of the omens and how they came to be and how the magic came to be was just like so well done, and she was so descriptive in the way that she went about it. Like I could just visualize it so well, and everything that we've known up until now has been a lie.
At least that's what the Boy King tells us.
At least that's what the 17-year-old tells us, which we choose to believe him over everything else.
Over everything else.
Okay, so trope tracker, we've already called out like 80
Yes.
But for me, the big one that was coming through here is like clearly the like slow burn romance, like to your point, where it's like they're not just immediately going to the sexy parts. Like she's doing just such a great job of setting up their romantic tension, and I love it. I cannot get enough of it.
That leads to my micro trope.
Oh.
There is a lot of romantasy out there where they end up in a hot spring.
Oh, that's true.
And there's always a moment where they're like seeing some tattoo on their back, or like accidentally kissing, or like rubbing her nipple on his arm somehow.
Yes, that's so true. I think she literally saw his like corded muscles, and he's in the moonlight, under the cover of moonlight, and she was like, "Oh damn, I'm in trouble." That is a micro trope, 100%.
And within that trope, I was like, "How is this girl's little shroud staying on in this water?"
Emily
She's completely naked.
Is so hung up on this shroud, people. I cannot tell you how many times I've received a text from her about the shroud.
What does it look like? How is it attached? How is it staying on so well? It's damn near glued to her forehead at this point.
The way that the shroud has just been out of my memory, other than the fact that we have not seen her eyes. I haven't questioned the logistics of the shroud one time.
Think about how wet a piece of fabric would get from the steam of a hot spring.
I mean, yeah, she's like showering with the shroud and everything. Like, it never comes out. I'm
not
showering, bathing.
Showering.
Bathing.
I can barely keep my shower cap on, and this girl's wearing this shroud throughout everything.
We can barely keep our eye masks on through a whole episode.
I know. Another trope I was seeing, is like the loyal best friend, like right-hand man, which...
With the gargoyle?
No, with Maud.
Oh, I saw that with the gargoyle.
Yeah, so see, multiple people. With Maud, with Rory, with the gargoyle. It's like this...
It's like found family.
Found family!
Yeah! What? 10 points for Gryffindor.
Found family trope.
Trope. Yeah, I would agree. I feel like, because Maud talks about how because she's much older than them. She's like in her 40s. And so she talks about how she's like more of a mom to them, or like an older sister than like an actual peer. And then Rory and Benji are more like brothers. Like Rory's like a little bit older than Benji, but like they more have a brotherly relationship.
Found family. And then also the sprites being like villainized, and maybe it's propaganda trope.
That's what I said. I'll say it again. Trope. Isn't that trend on the internet? Propaganda I'm not falling for. Sprites being evil.
Yeah.
Okay.
The things being murdered in masses are not actually evil.
They're actually good little things, okay?
Yeah.
And that's the propaganda that I am falling for. Okay, what was your quote of the week?
Oh my god, I forgot to write it down, but let me tell you.
Okay,
I know it was 2 different quotes, and I'm not going to be able to quote them directly, but they both were quotes that were describing a moth.
Oh,
and
okay.
both of the times that the quotes were said, they were said by Six, and she was describing how she felt during a certain scenario. So she'd be like, I feel like a moth on the wind, or like something like that. There were 2 quotes that said this, but she describes feeling like a moth a lot. And I'm like, girlfriend, what are you trying to tell us?
Wow, this takes me back to our first quote of how much of the truth is actually a lie.
Yeah, so like Benji's grandpa told us that supposedly the abbess is the moth.
Yes, so I also found that interesting, which I think I noted this in the last episode, but the fact that the moth is the 6th figure, we know the least about her. The 6th figure was like the one that like herded the craftsmen up to the spring, like all of that stuff. And then Sybil is the 6th diviner, and she's like the special one, like, and now she's describing herself as a moth left and right in your quotes. It's like, how does this all come together?
How does it come together? She can't be the moth. She's like 24 years old, I think they say.
Is she the moth in training? Is she
a
baby moth? We
don't know. Wait, is she
Is she still in her cocoon?
Which is like, do we know any rules at this point of like how old an omen must be?
No, we just know that the ashling water like keeps them alive, but we also learn that it slowly turns these omens to stone. So like that's why the inkwell guy had stone eyes, and the oarsman was like basically made of stone. And I think that's
he drank so much diviner blood.
Supposedly, I'm not believing that yet.
But I am wondering also, this leads me to question, when an omen is killed, does another one be made?
I don't think so, because they were just, like, humans originally. So they're one of one.
Six can't remember her previous life, so she could. I don't know. I was that was like, did they just say that? Quote of the week.
Rachel Bartholomew Gillig, tell us what's fucking going on. Okay, so mine was early on, and this one was about Sybil learning more about herself. So, like, throughout this book, essentially, she has been grappling with the fact that she was always this, like, special girl. Like, all the diviners were held on these pedestals by all of the Hamlet people, the people of the Hamlets. And within the diviners, she was the abbess's favorite, like, whatever. She's always felt like she was above everyone, essentially. And through learning all of these truths about their history, about the omens, all of that stuff, she's like, I am actually just a regular person. And so my quote was, maybe I thought there was a hierarchy to Aisling, like I thought there was to all of Trom, that gargoyles were better than other sprites, just like knights and kings were better than craftsmen, and that I was better than all of them. It sounds awful when I say it out loud. And the gargoyle says, true things often do. But then that becomes kind of a little thread through this part too of like the truth just being like really shitty. Like it just every time the truth comes out, it's just something that you don't want to hear. And so is that why a lot of history is a lie? Because it's like we're just feeding ourselves the shit that we want to hear.
Right, through the bards.
Through the bards.
That is a really good quote. And I also brings me to think about why the diviners are looked at above everybody else. What history told them that?
Well, because they're the closest connection to the omens that anyone has, because they're the ones that like dream and like predict these signs from the omens and all of that stuff.
Says the omens.
Says the fucking omens, who we can't trust for shit.
Exactly, and the abbess, who we also can't trust. Because at the end of the day, these are girls that were orphans, humans, and now they're just being drowned.
Yep. And all are just regular people being fucking drowned.
So they're just literally people that were adopted into abusive families being drowned.
Correct. Now they've found their found families.
So who's saying they're above everybody?
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of loved this aspect of the story too, where there's like clearly just a really nice like character arc for Sybil, where she's like starting to learn more about herself. She was clearly very ignorant, sheltered, all of the things, which is like no fault of her own. But I feel like
that's what happens at the nunnery.
At the supposed nunnery. Yeah, she's just getting like a big helping of humble pie, and she's like eating it, which I'm really proud of her for, because I feel like a lot of times you could just like let your ego run away with you.
Absolutely. And I really need to jump into the bits of the week, because I have a lot to say.
Okay, kick us off.
Now that we've met more of these omens and we're learning more about the history of Trom and how they came to be, how the heck did they come up with their names? The Harried Scribe, the Ardent Omen? What are these words?
I don't know. I keep wanting to call them the Headless Horsemen, though. I don't know why.
What is a Harried Scribe? Can you Google it?
Sure. I don't know what we're gonna get. It's gonna be like, this is a character in The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig.
No, just look up what the word harried means.
Okay. Harried definition. Let's see. Feeling strained as a result of having demands persistently made on one or harassed.
Interesting.
So maybe the Harried Scribe is harried because he is constantly being tasked with keeping the history of Trom.
Keeping the knowledge of everybody that comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, what does ardent mean?
Are we going through all of them?
We only know 2 so far. So this is the last one.
Okay. Enthusiastic or passionate.
Oh, so shut the fuck up. This
he's
man
really
is not
pumped
that.
about being an oarsman, apparently.
Oh my god, that is definitely not how I describe this man.
He's really psyched on his craft, and that's all we know.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that they have these, like, descriptors with them.
I mean, I just feel like Rachel Gillig is such a good writer and a descriptive writer that she's like, let me throw in some extra flair for all of these omens.
And then, I guess, like, everybody that's in the hamlet that these, like, omens are associated with kind of have those emotions, too? Are we supposed to assume?
I feel like they more so, like, rally around the craft. So, like, I feel like with the ardent oarsmen, like, the people in that mountain village were, like, fishermen, and they were people in the water. And then, like, I don't really know much about the scribes area, but... Yeah,
they didn't really tell us much about those people. I kind of feel bad for them. They really
there was a lot going on.
Them.
There was a lot going on at that part.
They were really glossed over.
But it's true. I feel like at least like the nobles of those hamlets, which are the people that are like leading these ceremonies for Benji, are like definitely a reflection of the omens and their craft.
Yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know why yet.
We're unclear.
It's really... Why. I could theorize about the whole second half of this book. I'm really trying not to.
Same. My biggest theory is that the diviners are not dead. Not all of them. I think maybe like 1 or 2 of them are dead. But
which ones are you picking off?
I'm picking off 4 for sure. 4 is definitely dead. I think 1 is still alive.
I think 1 is still alive too.
I feel like she started to unravel stuff when she saw that her eyes were scary and she didn't know what it meant. Okay, well that actually leads me, now that we're talking about the diviners, to one of mine where there was something that was noted essentially of like why the diviners are girls, and the gargoyle is the one that's like dishing on all of this information, and he says that the abbess picks girls specifically, and more specifically sick girls, because they bear the pain of drowning better, and I guess the sick ones always wake strange, special, and new. And remember when the abbess says this to Sybil when she goes through her first drowning, which leads me to believe that Sybil was sick in some way before she became a diviner.
Yep. And that takes me back to my Witcher reference. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. You have to watch the first episode to know.
All you need to know is that Henry Cavill is back.
Henry Cavill's back. You've all been begging for him.
You're all desperate for him.
But it was really interesting, and it also made Six realize that maybe the abbess wasn't as motherly as she thought.
No, I feel like we learned that the abbess has literally been gaslighting her entire life, and now we know. Which is crazy. And that's another reckoning that she has to go through, where she's like, my pseudo mommy was lying to me this entire time and basically just throwing shit into my face and pretending like I was special when really I just wasn't, and she was using me for her cause.
My quote of the week was almost when the gargoyle calls the abbess a bitch. It was so funny.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
He was like, she is kind of a bitch, and I'm like, we've all been thinking it, Bartholomew.
Say it out loud, Bartholomew. Say it for the back. That actually brings me to one of my other things where just Rachel, she said this during her tour, but like reading it has been so fucking, like I've actually been laughing out loud while reading this book, like alone in bed laughing out loud.
Yeah.
And she said on her tour that she like loves absurdism and like that's her just like style of humor. And the gargoyle just consistently gets like these like very famous and popular phrase is just so wrong, and every time he gets one wrong it gets me every single time.
Yeah, he's so funny, and then it's so funny because he like has no care in the world.
No, he's like, oh whatever. Moving on.
Yeah. I also think about your diviner theory about how, you know, we don't really know what's going on with them, where they've been. Is one still alive? I also am like, what is your theory about their eyes?
Ooh, so my initial theory was that they all had like a crazy color of eye because of the spring water.
Yeah.
But then when we learned that the omens all become stone, like the more spring water that they consumed, I was like, oh my God, they have stone eyes.
That's what I thought too, but why would people be surprised by that? Like, why, if everybody knows the omens are turning to stone from drinking the water, like the omens know them that themselves, why would the oarsman be so shocked when her shroud fell off?
Maybe because he's just never seen it reflected back at him? I don't know. It's a good question, but that's the only theory that I can come up with at this point.
What if their pupils are moths?
You know, I hadn't considered that one. I don't know. I don't know on that one. I'm gonna maybe stick to my stones theory.
Have you considered at all that they have no eyeballs?
I thought that, but then I was like, how the fuck are they seeing?
Magic.
Oh.
That explains it all.
Their eyeballs are magic. Their actual lack of eyeballs are magic.
100%.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that maybe it's like, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick to the stone theory for now. But I feel like we have to get an answer soon.
Also, in the last episode during Bits of the Week, we talked about some fan casts, and I think we got to learn a little bit more about Maud in this set of chapters, and we learned that, like, the women of her family are like a set of knights, and they have passed down her armor down to her grandma, to mom, to her, and like they're very well known to be this great knight family. Yeah. And I immediately thought of her as Brienne of Tarth.
Why are we only casting Game of Thrones characters?
I don't know.
Because also when we met the Harried Scribe, I thought of him as the old guy from The Wall. You know, like
Oh,
the old man who like keeps all the history or whatever, and he has the
yeah.
like milky white eyes. I was like, oh my god, that's that guy.
You know who I thought of? The Ardent Oarsman? The guy from Game of Thrones who's in the castle on the water.
Yeah.
And it's like really windy and like nobody ever goes there. I can't remember his name, but
Okay, so it's settled. This entire book is Game of Thrones.
Rachel, we're catching on to
We're
ya.
catching on. First it was The Witcher, now it's Game of Thrones.
The Witcher and the Game of Thrones. Actually, in The Witcher, they also go through some hamlets where people are doing weird things like this too. So, Rachel, let
There
us
you go.
know if you're a fan of The Witcher because I'm really seeing it for you.
You know, I did not actually have a Game of Thrones fan cast for Maud. She is giving me more like Viola Davis vibes for whatever reason.
In what sense?
Like, have you seen that movie? I think she's like the Lady King or something like that.
No.
Oh my god, it's so badass. She's like a warrior like woman in it.
Oh, I've never
and
seen this.
oh my god, it's so good. I just love her. And I think that is what keeps coming up in my brain. Like I'm just picturing Viola Davis in like armor from that movie.
I need to
and
look this up
she's giving me Maud vibes right now.
I've only ever been emotionally traumatized by Viola Davis in the best ways.
In the best ways. In an
So
Oscar-winning way.
Yeah, so I did not connect her with a warrior in armor.
Look it up and let me know in the comments.
If you agree.
Let me know in our own comments if you agree or not. Oh my god.
So let's jump into would we survive this week?
I actually think that I would survive this week.
I can agree.
I think I would survive the like duel with the oarsmen better than I would survive the multiple drownings in a day when they're going through the divinations.
I agree with you. I also think that you would be very good with the tools, like
Yeah.
the coin and the inkwell. Like you would really figure out how to use them to your advantage.
Agreed. I think if I was like placed in armor and I was given magical objects, I could really rise to the occasion. So, and I really think that I could survive being covered in beeswax by Rory. So,
I do not think I could survive this week because of the exact reason I survived last week because I'm so good at drowning. I would be drowning in the worst way possible with this fight with the oarsmen.
she would be drowning to the death.
Also,
I actually didn't think that you would survive because you would get too claustrophobic in the knight's armor. Like you'd be like, get this shit off of me.
Yes, 100%. Also, I would never survive this entire book because of the shroud. I would be so claustrophobic behind that shroud. I would rip that shit off day one and I'd be kicked out of the cathedral and you'd never see me again.
See, that's the thing is I am constantly wearing glasses that are so mucked up by my fingertips and I refuse to clean them that I feel like I'm already wearing a shroud 24/7.
But I would, like, argue that I could survive just to get covered in beeswax.
How about we give you that you'll survive through the beeswax scene and then maybe you'll perish.
And then it's all downhill from there.
And then it's all downhill.
I survived the armor and everything, but then it's all downhill from there.
That's fair. That's fair. So you would survive like half the week. That's fair.
I do think that I'd be a really good friend with the gargoyle.
I mean, yeah. How could you not?
But in the scene where they save Benji when he's like being attacked by the sprite, me and the gargoyle, if it was me and the gargoyle, we would not be saving him. We would have ran the other direction.
You would have been 50 feet away by then.
We would have been in a pub like, shit, thank God we got out of there in time.
Damn, R.I.P. to the Boy King. That was tough to watch. Yeah, I would agree. I think you're surviving up until they actually leave for their quest to find the oarsmen. And then it might be tough.
You can survive the hard times. I'm only good locked away in a cathedral.
Well, you are good, apparently, at drowning, which we learned as a first fact last week. I've never heard this about you. So, I I'm glad we're pivoting this week, honestly. I
Yeah.
didn't know what else you would be able to survive based off of a traumatic childhood experience in a pool. I
And
wasn't
that's
sure what else was going to come out this week, so I'm glad we're out where we are.
I do think a lot of our audience would survive this week. I really believe in you guys. Like, I think you could really become brave and take on the oarsmen.
I agree. I think if me and Six can do it, I think a lot of people can do it too.
And if you're in my corner and there's a select few of us that would run to the hills, slide into the DMs.
Slide.
We could be a safe space together.
Swim into the DMs, please.
All right,
my
Cass,
God.
what do we have to look forward to next week?
Next week, we'll be back with our third and final portion of the book. And then after that, we'll come back with a final review, our final fan cast, our final take on the whole thing. So don't miss it. It's about to get spicy. We're about to find out if all the shit we've been talking about is actually going to be real. So
Who's the lie?
see.
Who's the truth?
Who's the lie? Who's the truth? We'll see you same time, same place next Sunday. Bring your book boyfriend, bring your blankets, and we'll see you then.
See ya.
First trip on the book boyfriends.